Welcome to Attican Plays Railway Empire. All right, welcome back for part two of the Vulture scenario. This is the one where we're trying to help rebuild the South. As you can see there, we're in really good shape. We finished our first 5 tasks. We just have to build up our quarterly profit to an acceptable level, which, we're just going to build as we build. And I'm starting to buy industries because we have to own 20 industries by the end of the game. In order to finish the game off, we have to own 20 industries. That means farms, mines, or factories in the city. And so for one thing, I'm glad we've got the trickster character because she gives us a discount on all those purchases. Well, not on the purchases, but on any auctions, she gives us a discount. So you can see there, I own a couple businesses there. So most of this is basically just, I would call it almost basic building of the railroad. You're building up, buying these things, and the main thing is when you buy an industry. So for example, we buy a city industry. You want to make sure that we have goods coming into that industry so that it's getting supply, and you need to make sure it has a demand. That's extremely important that you have a demand. And what I mean by that is we have to be able to ship those goods somewhere else to another city or within our own city to sell them to make a profit. Now you can make a little bit of money, obviously, if your city demands it. So if you've got, say, a furniture industry, if you have if you got it in a big city, you can sell the furniture, a little bit of the furniture, 1 unit a week roughly or something like that, to your own city. So there's a little money. But to really make money, you need to be able to ship it out to other cities. So you need other large cities. So to me, first of all, the best things to own are the earlier items like beer and meat, because there's always a demand for those in every city, even smaller cities. So everywhere you've got your shipping, your your train network going, you can ship that meat and beer out to a lot of different places. Now, some of them will have demand, some won't, because a lot of them will have one of those industries in there. But find places where they don't, make sure you're shipping there. So basically, business ownership is, grab it. Like here, I'm putting in a brewery in Indianapolis. And I actually ended up buying what was there and taking it out and putting a brewery in because I want to be able to make beer and run it down to Louisville, right below us, because Louisville's a big city. It'll have a big demand, and it doesn't really have a direct supplier of beer. So here's a great example. So I want to make sure that I have wheat coming into Indianapolis to provide raw materials for the industry. Then I'm going to have this line that I'm setting up right here to go down to Louisville, and now I've got demand for my product, and I've got supply, and I get shipping, so I get paid for all the pieces. And in fact, if I could swing it and own the wheat farm, then I'd be paid for. The wheat farm would make money by selling it to my brewery. My brewery would make money by selling it to Louisville and to people in Indianapolis themselves. And I would make money for hauling the wheat to the brewery and for hauling the beer to Louisville. That's how you really make money in Railway Empire. That's how you kind of own the whole process. So that's what we're doing here. This is going to go on like this for a while. And I'm going to kind of just let it play. And if I see anything interesting, I'll make a comment on it. But it's basically just, kind of building 101. So here's what I was talking about with the Indianapolis. We're going up there. I'm looking to see if I can buy that thing. Too much. But I sure can hook it up. So I'm going to hook it up to Indianapolis, run it down like so, and bring it into Indianapolis so that Indianapolis is getting plenty of wheat for my business, for my beer, my brewery. And so again, here I'm going to make money shipping that stuff down to Indy, I'm going to make money by making the beer and then selling it, and I'm going to make money by shipping the beer down to Louisville. And you probably noticed I didn't use warehouses in this. I don't think I used one anywhere, but I do have. I know there's a lot of interest out there about warehouses, so I'm going to make a. I am in the process of making a video that will cover warehouses in depth to the extent that I know them. You know, I mean, everything I do here is how much I know, but I'm going to talk about various techniques for using the warehouses, for hooking them into a system, and why you would or would not use a warehouse, and what kind of goods should you put in a warehouse, and what kind of goods should you avoid putting in a warehouse. So we'll talk about that in a video that's going to be coming up real soon. I promise. I promise. If you know, good Lord willing, and the creek don't rise, as they say, I will get to that video. In fact, I'm in the process right now. So I also I want to do this. I put it into the description of the last one, the part one. But I want to say thank you to Richard Vanderhoek for. I hope I'm not butchering your name, but Richard, when you asked me about that, do I ever use that control, hold down control when I set my signals to do auto placement? I honestly, I'd never paid any attention to it. Didn't even know that it existed. I completely missed that, and I wear it out during this video, and I'll probably be wearing it out the rest of the time that I play Railway Empire, because I really I like it. I like it. So here I'm setting up. I'm Toledo, because I want to run my beer out to Toledo. And I just want to make money hauling passengers and mail and whatever with Toledo, but I want that beer to have as many possible ways to go as possible as it can. And I know that a little later in this one, and by the way, if you can't tell, this is a voiceover. Usually I just kind of record them as I go. It's much easier, but this one I was playing without the recording, the last half of it. And I decided to just do a voiceover and talk about things. So the advantage is I can kind of talk about more generic concepts as I go. The disadvantage is sometimes I don't remember what I did. So, and given that, you know, sometimes I don't remember what I had for breakfast, so, you know, it's not surprising that I occasionally don't remember exactly what I did in a video game. But I'm setting up, again, more demand for that beer, so I'm kind of driving off that one beer brewery, I guess I should say, in Indy is driving my behavior right now. Now these are things I might do anyway. You know, setting up. It's always good to build a line and run some trains on it to carry some passengers and mail and hopefully a little bit of goods. But there, I just used that control functionality. It's pretty awesome. So, and I know what's coming up here is my next connection, and I contemplated not making the one coming up here right after we get this line going between Indy and Toledo. If I recall correctly, I'm going to make a line between Toledo and Cleveland. And Cleveland is producing beer, and I actually contemplate, see, I'm bumping this up. I want to make more money by supplying it to more places. So now Indy can ship beer to Toledo, can ship beer to Louisville. Now, see, this one here, this one I even remember thinking, do I really want to do this? We got beer coming. And I tell you what, I think a lesson learned for me is if I was going to do this one again right here, unless I could buy that beer, and I really don't want my beer, two breweries competing with each other. See, I even tried to buy it. But I would, if I couldn't buy the beer in Cleveland, what I would do is make my shipments so it doesn't take beer. I would turn beer off as part of the shipments for Cleveland to Toledo, and that way I wouldn't be competing with myself. All the beer for Toledo would have to come from Indianapolis, from my brewery, and And that way I could still have my cake and eat it too, because I could still ship passengers other goods. I could still ship the meat from Toledo over to Cleveland, but I wouldn't be bringing the beer back. I would just basically refuse shipment. I'd be saying I just won't be doing business with that other company. I won't do their shipments. And that way I could force all the beer to come from India. That would have been, I wish I was that smart. I wish I'd thought of that, because that would have been a great idea. But I'll keep that in mind. I hope you'll keep that in mind for future. Control what you ship. And you don't always want to ship everything that you could possibly get your hands on. All right, so the rest of this is going to play out. We've got to get our company value up, so you can see what I'm doing. I'm building more lines, I'm expanding the network, but I'm also expanding the businesses, and I'm going to be making money with those businesses. And if you do your businesses right, you can make, they're like, what I've seen is they kind of fall in line with the trains. A train and a business are almost equivalent, because your train can make $1,000, $2,000 a week average, running back and forth on a line, or sometimes way more, sometimes occasionally less. And your businesses can make a similar amount. And once you start growing and building them, expanding your population and your train routes and et cetera, you can start making those numbers go up. But businesses can be just as good as trains. I mean, they can absolutely be just as good as a train. Now there I'm using a market crier. Market criers, make sure you use those when you can, because what they do is for a period of I think it's 6 weeks, they will either talk about comfort or safety. If they talk about comfort, your passenger volume is going to go up. It's basically advertising. You're advertising how comfortable and wonderful your trains are. You get more passengers and your business goes up. If they do safety, if they emphasize safety, your mail volume goes up. So depending on the scenario, you might have one where you have to do passengers, you might have one where you have to do packages. Obviously, you want to use your market crier for that, and plus you just make more money. So whatever you expend on that market crier, once you have a good network set up, you will make more money than you spent. In other words, it's a good investment to use the market crier and boost your business, because it also helps you. You're typically running a scenario where you're trying to. And here I'm trying to buy a couple businesses, but they're just too expensive. Those were a little. Now here I've got one where I've slowed it down to make sure I didn't lose this opportunity. I can put in a second business in Indianapolis now, because I've grown it and I've got my beer going, and now I'm trying to decide what would be a smart thing to put in there. And I think I picked textiles, because there's a clothing. Let's see. Yeah. I picked textiles because there's clothing down in Louisville, which is a decent sized city. So now those textiles can be sold in Indy. They can be shipped to Toledo, and they can especially be shipped to Louisville, because Louisville has a clothing industry which needs textiles. So the city needs cloth itself, and its industry needs even more cloth. So now I've got another really good profitable business. Well, it's not yet, but it will be very soon a profitable business. Now here, I'm just leaking that up. I'm not even going to, I don't think I even run it anywhere. And the reason being, I've been buying these industries, and I'm not seeing the credit for them. It seems like I'm buying them and not getting credit for them. So I'm wondering if I have to link them, actually tie them to my line to get them to give me credit. And I don't even recall if this one is that example or not, but there were 2 or 3 times where I would buy something, and then I'd look and say, I'm not. Yeah, this one I'm actually running. Sorry, I'm off one, or 2 or 3. but as I'm going through these things, I'm trying to figure out why I'm not getting credit for them. But finally, I do. I get all 20 of them, and this thing will end. I'm just kind of giving away the ending here, aren't I? But at any rate, I hope you're getting that idea. I think it's important. This one was good because of the idea of owning the businesses and growing them, and having them be an integral part of your company rather than just saying, oh, I'm going to just build railroads and go flying all over the place with railroads. You can go flying all over the place with railroads and make money, but to really control it and to really make money, you need to take your business and expand them. And I would also say when you're up against very hard competitors, if they push against you, there's a point where you're going to get boxed in, and there's only so much you can do with the railroad until you have the money to buy out the competitors. You'll actually get at a point where you can't expand, but you better come up with a different way to make money, and that different way is to buy your industries, set up your demand and your supply, and make sure that you've got the right industries in the right places so that there's demand there and those industries make money, and you can make a ton of money off the industry. So I guess that's kind of the message on this one is on this part 2 is how to think about the industries and how to make sure that you're making money from them. Oh, and one other tip I would give you, if you have a scenario where you have to buy a lot of industries, look for the logging sites and the mines, like the coal mines and iron ore and clay pits and stuff like that, because they are almost always the cheapest. And you could just go out. In fact, in this scenario, I don't know if we'll see it here, but I actually went out and bought a couple of logging sites and some iron ore and clay and stuff, and never even used it. It just sat there, but I bought it so that I could run up those numbers and get to my 20 industries on them, because it takes some bucks to own a bunch of industries. You know, some of these get pretty pricey. So anyway, that's enough of that. I think I'm going to fast forward it down to the end. You can see we're real close. I can tell you that we're right on the verge of hitting that quarterly revenue, as you can see there, and we'll top it next time, because during this time we have set up that Indianapolis stuff with the 2 industries we've got. They're both starting to make a profit. So let's let it run for a little bit, and we'll see if we don't hit it. We're actually
Your
waiting
quarterly
for March.
results are
there we
rather
go.
impressive.
So there we've hit our quarterly revenue. So now we just need to buy out our last competitor, and that's what we want to do first before we buy finish off those 20 purchases, because if we do the 20 purchases first, we'll never have a chance to buy the competitor. And like I said, she's expensive. She's costing us a pretty penny, but you know what? We've got a technique for handling it. We'll just close out all our bonds. We're going to go back and I got a little confused. I remember I kept hitting the wrong button. There we go. We're going to issue a couple of very big bonds. Very big bonds. And then we're going to go, that's because we're worth a lot of money now. And then we're going to go out and say, we're going to wait and say, okay, how much of this? We got 98% of her, so we're just waiting on enough money for the last 2%. And we say goodbye to Beatrix, which is always a pleasure.
You are peerless.
We got a little value back
None
from
of your
her
competitors
when
can
she came
keep
back.
up
Now
with
all
you.
we've got to do is take that money and finish
You
off
always
buying
speak twice,
industries.
my
And this is
dear.
where I go into
That's a
mode
threat,
where I go
not
out
a
and buy
promise.
logging camp. See right here, I'm going to buy this logging camp. I think I actually hook it in to the end of that station up above just to have it hooked up. But I start buying logging camp there. I bought that one. I'm looking around for cheap stuff. I'm looking for bargains right now. I'm kind of going to the flea markets. I'm trying to see, there's a city out there by itself. Would that brewery be cheap? Not really. So I'll pass on that. But I just walk around the map looking for things to buy. And I don't even care at this point. I don't care if I even use them now. A businessman, of course, I'd buy them as bargains, and eventually I'd go back and set them up and make sure I made money off of them. But right now, I'm just trying to get my scenario done as quickly as I can. So, oh, look here. Here's a logging camp. It's cheap. There I go. I own that. Now I'm looking and saying, okay, look at that. There's a mine. I can grab that cheaply. So I just keep doing that process. So let me speed this up. And let's get on out here to the end, and we'll see how we ended up on this scenario. All right, so we're going to buy that meat industry in Chicago, and that's going to put us over the edge and give us our 20 industries that we own. So let's see how we did. And it looks like we did pretty well. 58.4. I think that's pretty good, but I was a little disappointed on the time rating. We only got 19.4 out of 20. I mean, that's very good, but obviously there was something a little bit slow there somewhere. And I don't know what's going on here. I wanted to say, I wanted to brag on this one, so I saved a little snapshot of it. So forgive me for that. But I saved a snapshot of this one in case I ever want to come back to it. That's the highest score I personally have gotten on one so far, but I hope to beat that soon. I could have gotten 20 out of 20 there, and it would have been interesting to see what the score would have been. So I hope you enjoyed this one. I enjoyed playing the scenario. It was fun, and I look forward to. I might give it another shot one of these days and see if I can't get 20 out of 20 on the timing. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope it'll help you become a better player, and I hope you'll join us for our next Railway Empire video. Thank you.